Well, let's talk to David Manne. He's Executive Director of Refugee Legal. He joins us from Melbourne via Skype. David, so hundreds of these refugees and asylum seekers say they want compensation and the ability to travel abroad. So how significant is this petition, and do you think it's going to work?
The petition is very significant because it's really based on a fundamental principle, and that is that justice delayed is justice denied. These men have been effectively forced from Australia to Papua New Guinea and held in extremely inhumane and harmful conditions for 5 years now. They won a case in 2016 where the highest court in Papua New Guinea found that they had been unlawfully detained, unconstitutionally detained, and now they're seeking redress for that. And really what they're now saying is that after all of these years of untold damage and harm held in PNG on Manus Island, they don't want any further delay in their case.
So why is the PNG Supreme Court reluctant to hand down this decision? I mean, some reports suggest the decision has already actually been made.
That's right. One of the lawyers in the case in Papua New Guinea, a locally based lawyer, has real concerns that the decision might already have been made and judgment not yet delivered. It's very difficult to know in these kinds of proceedings precisely what is going on behind the scenes in terms of the making of the decision. But I think what's very important here, while we can't speculate on whether this will be successful, what it does do is underpin the very point itself, and that is that these men, asylum seekers and refugees who've been through such a terrible ordeal, suffering and damage, want justice. And what they're calling for is something fundamentally fair here, and that is that they not only receive a judgment, but it not be delayed.
David, let's just remind our viewers that the PNG Supreme Court ruled back in 2016 that the Australian-run camp was unconstitutional, and since then there have been numerous appeals and legal arguments. So let me ask you, will this PNG ruling finally mean the end of this case then?
We don't know, because it will depend on the actual decision. If the decision goes in favour of the refugees and asylum seekers, what it will mean is, firstly, that there will be compensation for the harm done, the unlawful detention that was found to be unlawful in 2016. The second issue, and really the most important, the most fundamental of all in addressing the plight of these men, is that it will provide the opportunity for them to get travel documents which are essential for them to be able to then seek resettlement in safety, which they cannot achieve in Papua New Guinea. That's what they ultimately are seeking, is resettlement as refugees in safety so they can rebuild their lives.
And the point you make about resettlement is interesting, because countries like New Zealand have repeatedly said they would resettle about 150 of the Manus refugees a year. But this has been rejected by the Australian government, who see this as giving them perhaps a back door to Australia. So even if the court rules in favour, it still doesn't mean the refugees will get to resettle in countries like Australia.
Well, that's right. Well, Australia, central to the Australian policy, has not only been exile of these men to another country when they originally sought asylum in Australia, but also a prohibition, that is a total ban on them ever being able to resettle back in Australia. That's why they're stuck. Australia has also sought, quite unconscionably, to block the offer by another country, New Zealand, to take 150 refugees per year from Manus Island and Nauru, where other refugees were exiled. But for a number of years now, the Australian government has sought to block the offer by another country to provide evacuation to safety of these men. What these men are now trying to do is get permission to have a travel document which would provide a further possibility of resettlement.
OK, David Manne, thank you very much indeed for talking to us.
Thank you.